Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the SCRD Electoral Area Services Committee. I acknowledge that we are meeting today on the territories of the Sechelt, on the Squamish Nations, peoples of the Salish Sea. Today we have some new members. I'd just like to introduce alternate director Landon Dix. He is alternate for Area B. And also we have Director McMahon. She is coming in from on Zoom today. And I've got Director Bax from Area B. He's taking over as vice chair for this meeting this morning. Where we are. So where I'm calling the meeting to order, and we have an agenda. Is there any additions or changes? Seeing none, we're moving to the next part. I have a motion to receive all reports. I see a seconder. All those in favor? And that passes unanimously. So we start off today, page 3. We've got the official community plan, OCP renewal project update. This is update number 3 for April 2025. So Manager Jackson, are you starting?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the purpose of this report is just to provide a monthly update on the OCP renewal project. This is OCP renewal project update number 3 for April 2025, and staff are here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Directors, do we have any questions of this update? Director Lee, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Just confirmation from the timeline. I was looking at the Cowichan Valley update, and they have a whole bunch of land, I forget exactly what they call them, land use plans by electoral area. Will those be included in this timeline by the end of 2027?
Staff, did you get that?
Yeah, I think so. Thank you for the question through the chair. So the intent of this project is by the end of the project to deliver new land use categories that reflect the needs of the electoral areas with a new implementing zoning bylaw to support the implementation of those land use designations. So it will be a full review of the existing land use designations and development of new and or renewal of the existing ones to meet the needs of the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Bax.
Thank you, Manager Jackson. I was particularly, I wanted to discuss what I see in the staff report that follows. Is that, am I too early for that?
Yes, I think there's I have a couple more questions about the update.
Okay.
Do you want to just hold on that and we can get back to
Very good. I'll just hang on until we get to that part. Thanks.
So seeing no other questions from my fellow directors, I have a couple of questions. On page 12, we talk about First Nations engagement. Number 1, how many First Nations are being contacted as part of identified interest for this process?
Thank you for the question. I think page 12 is the second report. The update report is quite brief. I don't know if we want to hold that question to the second report.
I'm going to hold that question. I was just way too excited about this. Director Bax, anything about the staff update?
No, sorry, my hand. Sorry, my hand is a residual. I'll lower it until we get to the staff report.
So it seems we have no more questions about item 4.1. So now we'll move on to 4.2, which is a request for decision by directors. Staff, would you like to introduce us, please?
Good morning. This report brings forward a proposal for how to action the engagement strategy that was approved via March Electoral Area Services Committee. The plan that you have before you today is an updated version of what the committee received in October 2024, which was later referred in October to APCs for feedback. Today, you have an adjusted plan that includes APC feedback and changes related to the updated scope and timeline. This plan covers the main audiences to be reached, the tactics to be used, and an approximate timeline of what is expected in each month of engagement phase 1, which runs from June this year to September. Staff recommend endorsing this plan, and with approval, we will begin the detailed communications planning, invitations, and event bookings. Thank you. We're here for any questions you may have.
Directors, Director Bax.
Yeah, thank you. This is a massive project, and I see it goes well beyond the next election cycle. So hopefully we can deal with it in a in a positive manner. I know that my community my community has an organization that is one of the bodies that's mentioned in this report as far as people to talk to, and they're well versed in the OCPC. One of the questions that came up in our OCPC meeting this week was that if I look at page 7 of the document, the recommendation number 3, there is talk of all the different areas and creating a combined OCP, one OCP. There's no talk about the schedules that would be individual to each area. So I've tasked my OCPC with looking at what what is unique within the Roberts Creek OCP, and to bring that forward as a perhaps something that could be added as an appendix schedule, an extra part, like a neighborhood plan type of thing to that. And another thing that we discussed was the how the Comox Valley Regional District has attacked this issue and the job that they've done. And I hope that staff is aware of the work that's been done in Comox Valley, and it's from what I've heard, it's quite complicated, but it's quite good, and something that we could lean on when if we are having any trouble in our own pursuits. Anyway, thank you again for your for the work that you do, and my OCPC is creating a public engagement this next weekend at Earth Day at Roberts Creek, and it may be germane for some of the planning staff to visit their booth and to see what they're up to. All right, thank you.
So it was more of a comment. Does staff have any response to the comments made by Director Bax?
Thank you for the comments. Staff have taken note, and we look forward to the project and working with your electoral area. Thank you.
Next, we have Director McMahon on Zoom.
Thank you. At the top of page 11, it sets the goal of getting the community excited about this project. I'm thinking perhaps we should aim a little lower and get them interested. Excitement in my area is not necessarily a good thing. I've seen perhaps too much of it. Yeah, I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Director McMahon. Director Lee.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to confirm that we are not actually going to form OCP advisory groups this time around. Is that correct?
Staff, would you like to respond?
Thank you for the question. Yes, that's correct. The intent this time is to not form official community plan review groups that are separate from the larger engagement process, but certainly recognize existing groups and work with them in the knowledge base that exists within the community and other similar groups that already exist. Thank you.
Do you have a follow-up, Director Lee?
No,
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah. Director Bax?
Yeah, I have a follow-up on Director Lee's question, in that we do have APCs, and I wonder what the level of engagement you're going to be expecting from our APCs.
Staff?
Thank you very much for the question. In the plan, you'll notice that APCs have a check-in at the beginning of each engagement phase. That was noted in the engagement strategy as well as at the end of each phase. So the intent at the beginning is to provide APC members with an overview of what the phase is about and invite them to assist us with sharing that information with their community. And at the end of the phase, the intent is to share back what we've heard with APC members. So in addition to those two opportunities, we're also looking to APC members as local context advisors because we know they have unique understanding of each of their areas that will be valuable to looking at the future of land use planning for the Sunshine Coast Regional District.
Thank you for the answer. It was very good.
I have a couple comments. First of all, how many First Nations are getting referrals on this initial engagement process?
Thank you very much for the question. I don't have those numbers at my fingertips, but the number of First Nations within or who have claim in our areas or who are included in the statement of intent involves both land and water. I'm getting a note here, and I believe that ranges between 10 and 15. I don't have the exact number.
And I have a follow-up comment is I note that we don't really have a criteria for what is considered successful engagement with First Nations. I think that is something for the directors to consider as we move through this process. As responses come in or not, it to me is important that we recognize what that means as we move forward with this. So it's just more of a comment than anything else. Thank you. I see no further hands, so I'm wondering if someone's interested in putting forward the recommendation on page 7. Director Bax, and that's the motion as recommended.
Yep. Yes.
Do I have a seconder? Director Dix, and no further questions. All those in favor? And that passes. Thank you. So our next item begins on page 18, 4.3, Official Community Plan Budget Update. And that is also a request for decision.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to provide an update on the official community plan project budget and seek direction on contract and financial plan amendments to support the endorsed scope and timeline. Staff recommend that contract number 235002 with KPMG LLP be amended as described in this report and that the delegated authorities be authorized to execute the contract. It is additionally recommended that the balance of the remaining provincial capacity funding for local government housing initiatives totaling $94,383 be directed to support housing-related infrastructure servicing analysis as part of the OCP renewal project. Staff are here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Directors, any comments? This is something we did discuss last month about the expansion of the scope. Director McMahon, go ahead.
In fact, I would say we did not expand the scope of this project after a lot of consultation with the directors. The project, the OCP renewal project, was considerably narrowed in scope, but the price is going up. So I would just like to get some clarification on why that is.
Staff, go ahead.
Thank you. Some of the reasons that are included in this is both time delays, increasing prices, of course, as mentioned, but also the need to implement Bill 44. So I was part specifically the $94,383 as well. I would note the previous housing needs report that was done as well are all additions to this project that weren't originally contemplated when the project was scoped. So those are now included in the scope by nature of the legislative changes that have happened in the province. Thank you.
Thank you, Manager Jackson. Director Bax.
I think it's part of my duties as a representative of my community to complain about these kind of things. We're in for a penny, we're in for a pound. We've gone down this road, and now everything costs more. Is the money that's being set aside for this is granted by the provincial government to do the work?
Staff.
Thank you. The short answer is yes. There was provincial capacity funding received, which has supported the OCP project, both in nature of incremental staffing. It was approved through Budget 2024, the housing needs report, and this additional work for servicing analysis. Thank you.
Seeing no further hands, would somebody like to provide the motion? Director Lee?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the recommendations on page 18.
Do I have a seconder? Seconder. Director Bax? I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And that passes. Thank you, directors. Our next item is 4.4, preliminary project considerations for early update of bylaw 337. This is a request for decision. It's on page 21 of the package. Staff, would you like to introduce this?
Thank you, Chair. A little bit more detail on this one was requested, so I've got a little bit longer intro as a result. This report seeks a board decision on whether to proceed with an early update to zoning bylaw 337 to allow secondary suites and/or auxiliary dwelling units, also known as ADUs, as outlined in Bill 44, the Housing Statutes Amendment Act, or to adhere to the existing work plan. So a little bit of background. Currently, bylaw 722 is generally compliant with Bill 44 by allowing for either secondary suites or ADUs on residentially zoned properties, except those that are part of a wastewater service area where further studies are required to determine the feasibility of those additional dwelling units on those sites. This same analysis is required for properties within wastewater treatment areas in bylaw 337. Bylaw 337 currently permits ADUs on approximately 40% of properties, which equates to about 1,460 parcels. Since the inception of bylaw 722, fire flow deficits have been identified, and staff would recommend this be considered in any analysis that informs granting additional dwelling units on properties in bylaw 337 that are not already so zoned. SCRD has obtained an extension to comply with Bill 44 until June 30th, 2026 on increased risk to health, public safety, or the environment. And an infrastructure analysis is planned to be part of the OCP renewal project, and staff are also in process of actioning the board's direction to have this extension lengthened to align with the new OCP project timeline. So there's 3 options considered in this report, and staff are happy to answer any questions related to those. Thank you.
Directors, comments, questions? Director McMahon?
Yes, so we have different rules in bylaw 722 and 337, in other words, area A and everywhere else. Do we have statistics for area A versus everywhere else? Because it looks like all these statistics on secondary dwellings are aggregated. And so it's not possible to tell what the difference is, what difference was made by the two different bylaws.
Staff, would you like to respond?
Yes, thank you for the question. I don't have all of the detailed statistics with me here today. We do have some. They are based off of BC assessment and our mapping data on the residentially zoned properties that we have. So I can speak to the fact that in the report, we do detail that we were generally compliant with SHMU across the rural areas in the nature of 74% when we look at both bylaws. So as part of the extension granted by the province, those were some of the data that was given. Actually, this time last year at Electoral Area Services Committee is when that report went forward. We have broken that down a little bit further for Area A based off of some of the questions. So in Area A, we're about 40% compliant. In Bylaw 337, we have what we call an ADU, an auxiliary dwelling unit permission. It is the same size as a secondary suite as regulated by Bylaw 722. In Bylaw 337, it's a little bit different because it can be attached or detached. So it could essentially form a secondary suite on those properties, but it could also be detached. So really the questions before us are sort of whether we go further at this time or whether we stick with the existing work plan and incorporate that into the OCP renewal project. Thank you.
Could I follow up?
Yes, go ahead, Director McMahon.
So, do we have more secondary suites and ADUs in Area A, or less secondary suites? A significantly different number of secondary suites and ADUs in Area A versus the other areas?
Staff.
So thanks for the question. As we noted in the report, the percentage of sort of uptake is actually region-wide when that number was pulled. So that would take some further analysis to actually compare against BC assessment with the number of permitted secondary suites in Area A and determine how we comply in that particular area. We looked more regionally in terms of the electoral area specifically when we applied for the SHMU extension. And at this time, we do have 40% of the properties so zoned in Area A. So I would suggest that low 5% uptake noted in the report is likely somewhat consistent across the coast, but I don't have the data to support exact details. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to go to Director Lee now.
Thank you, Chair. I do have a comment and several questions. In Area A, having a secondary suite or an ADU is largely dependent on the size of the lot. And the lot size is pretty big, like 4,000 square meters before you can get it, 1 hectare before you can get it, 1.75 hectares before you can get it. So it's quite different from 722. I have a couple of questions. I got to figure out what order to ask them here. Bylaw 722 has been updated to allow for suites and ADUs without an assessment of universal assessment of infrastructure capacity for wastewater treatment, water supply, and fire flow. So my guess, and I don't know the answer to this, it's a good question, but I think this is done on an individual basis when the permit's applied for. Would that be correct?
Staff, do you have that?
Thank you for the question. So when Bylaw 722 was updated, the fire flow analysis had not yet been completed. So we did not yet know of the problems that we have with the capacity in our water system. Now that we do know that that issue exists, it would be advisable that we understand it as part of authorizing additional dwelling units that are not currently zoned. There is a world where certainly you can look on each building permit, but that is quite resource intensive in terms of staff having to check each building permit that comes in against the fire flows in that area, and there is risk involved in making sure that there's a dialed and accurate process that makes sure that we get it right every time we get a building permit come in. So again, that's getting into a bit more project design. So something that, you know, if option 2 or 3 is selected in the report, then that would be part of the project design that we'd have to report back on how the options that we could consider to best implement bringing those secondary suites forward at this time. Thank you.
Do you want to ask another? I know you have a number of comments, but I do want to get through
I
the
need
others
to
too.
clarify again the answer. Wastewater treatment must fall in the same category then if someone's applying for a secondary suite or an ADU in a wastewater. You must, are you checking at that point whether there's capacity in the plant?
Thanks for the question. To clarify on that one, in bylaw 722, wastewater treatment areas were expressly not permitted to have secondary suites or any additional dwelling units beyond the single unit dwelling unit permitted on the lots. And that's due to the fact that most of those systems, to the best of staff's knowledge, were designed for the capacity of the number of single dwelling units that were permitted by the lots in that subdivision. So there is no more capacity in most cases, so therefore the bylaw did not permit them. So it would be a similar approach in bylaw 337 at this time. For clarity, both option 2 and 3 wouldn't consider wastewater treatment areas until the studies were done, which are planned to be done through the OCP renewal project. I should clarify that would apply to bylaw 337 and 722.
Yes, I think my logic in this is that if we were to do 337 update to similar to 722, we would use the same process. We wouldn't go ahead and do all of the things proposed in the OCP to meet 4.4. In other words, pre-qualify.
Is that clear?
I think so. So basically that through the OCP project, we would be looking at a septic review of I think there's 16 wastewater treatment plants that we have in the electoral areas. And so we will be looking at each of those to see what capacity they have, what would need to be done to upgrade them. And it will be a case-by-case basis based on the outcome of those results to see whether there's an ability or a capacity that's feasible within the existing lifespan of those wastewater or sewer areas to add the secondary suites. And certainly, we'll be reporting back to the board on that to get direction once we have those results. Thank you.
Director Lee, do you mind if I move on to other questions and then we'll get back to you?
Oh, yes.
Thank you. Director Bax.
Have I spoken on this yet? Okay, because, okay, I know. Because Landon would be next then. Continuing on with the question that Director Lee had for fire flow. So it sounds like it's, right now, it's kind of a case-by-case thing that you guys are doing in planning. Somebody makes an application and you have to look at the map and see if there is fire flow. Now, I've seen the map. All our fire flow maps are green, red, yellow, based on the high summer flow and at the fire hydrant locations. And so they're all part of our water system and they're at the fire hydrant locations. Is there a publicly available map that shows the green, yellow, red of fire flow that I have been privy to, and so that when someone's looking at doing any kind of subdivision or improvements to their land, an auxiliary building, etc., that they can have a quick check to see if their location is serviced by enough water for the fire flow.
So this is a little bit beyond the report, but if staff can respond, maybe they might have to get back to you on that.
Thank you, Chair. Just to say, the Fire Flow Action Plan project being managed by the Infrastructure Services team is moving forward, and I know that an update is coming to a future committee, and staff will look to include information about that addresses the director's question at that time. Thank you.
Does that help you?
Yeah, it does.
Yep, okay. Director Dix.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, question for staff. I'm just curious, do we roughly know what percentage of properties in Area A are greater than 4,000 square meters? Like how many properties currently are allowed an ADU? And then just to clarify, in 722, minimum lot size is half an acre to have an ADU? And then we're talking about ADUs as well as secondary suites, which may be attached here. So I guess there is a difference between an ADU versus a suite within the building. My biggest question is, yeah, like how many properties currently can have an ADU in Area A? Do we have the stats on that?
So Director Dix, all questions need to go through the chair?
Through the chair.
That's
Thank
fine. So staff, would you have a response to that?
Thank you, Chair. Through the chair, to answer the bigger question there, it's about 40% of the properties in Bylaw 337 Area A that are currently eligible to have what is called an ADU in Bylaw 337. As mentioned in my intro there, though I recognize it was a bit long, in Bylaw 337 versus 722, what is referred to as an ADU is a little bit different. It's a 55 square meter auxiliary dwelling unit that may be attached or unattached to the principal dwelling. In Bylaw 722, we differentiate between a secondary suite and an ADU. An ADU in Bylaw 722 is 90 square meters maximum size, where a secondary suite must be contained within the building and is limited to 55 square meters in size. So the Bylaw 337 requirement, to sort of sum it up, sort of lands somewhere between the two different permissions in Bylaw 722. Thank you.
And just in case people are wondering what ADU is, most of us know, but it's auxiliary dwelling unit. Because we tend to throw around these acronyms a lot. Next up, Director McMahon.
Yes. We're in a housing emergency, and it seems to me that we should be doing our best to address the housing emergency. And with respect to staff who are trying to do their jobs in a diligent way, we actually have no idea how many secondary suites there are. Well, actually, we do have, through statistics on how many renters there are, we have a very rough idea. And of course, it's far more than the official ones that we have in our system. So there are a lot of secondary suites, and there are also a lot of RVs parked on people's lands out there. And so when we leave our bylaws the way they are, we're penalizing the people who want to follow the rules, who are trying to put in a legal suite. Meanwhile, there's a ton of illegal suites. We have no idea what impact they're having on the septic systems because we don't know how many illegal suites there are. I mean, I'm finding the exercise a little frustrating. I'm not sure if staff have any comment on that, or if other directors have any thoughts on that.
I'll start with directors. Any response? I mean, it does seem like that's a fact, and it's a fact that seems to be played out across the province. So it's trying to find that balance that I see in my area anyways. But staff, do you have any further comments to make?
Thank you, Chair. Through the chair, I would just add that the 5.2% that's cited in the report, that's BC assessment data. We don't have tracked building permit data on the number of suites that are legally authorized through a building permit. There, through a review of some of the more recent drawings, we could maybe determine that, but we don't have an actual full secondary suite program where we're tracking all those that we authorize. So these are the ones that are reported through BC assessment data, both including authorized and unauthorized suites. But it is certainly correct that there are a number of ways that people are finding different ways to find housing on the Sunshine Coast, and certainly there are ones that we want to work on to make sure that there are as many dignified options for people to find legitimate housing units on the Sunshine Coast. I would add that within that larger context, when we talk about the 5% number, so that's sort of an absorption rate. If we look at the ability throughout the Sunshine Coast, we see that there's actually the potential to go up to about 74%, but we haven't seen that yet. So I'm not sure how much more uptake we would get in Area A if we were to look at those existing areas outside of the wastewater treatment areas at this time. But certainly it would increase the permissions, no doubt about that. So staff have presented options 1, 2, and 3 for the board's consideration. Thank you.
I did notice Senior Manager Hall had his hand up briefly. Do you want to add anything?
Thank you, Chair. The opportunity that SCRD has with the timing of these provincial housing statutes and recognizing there's a housing crisis and our work to update land use bylaws is we have an opportunity to create changes to our bylaws that align with what the community wants to see, that are responsive to the infrastructure that we have. And staff are endeavoring to do that as quickly as we can. So appreciating that the report says stick with the current plan rather than move very fast on this one thing. Just the macro opportunity here is to address this through a systematic and comprehensive way. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to go to Director Lee.
Thank you, Chair. I just have 2 more questions. So, my thoughts, and I'm actually asking if it's a legitimate thought, is we could permit secondary suites and to be approved wherever a single-family home exists or can be built, and also permit an ADU instead of a secondary suite, as long as the maximum lot coverage is not exceeded. To me, that appears to be what the government would like us to do. In other words, allow it wherever it's possible, at all possible. Is that something we are considering as we update our bylaws?
Response from staff?
Thank you. Through the chair, the spirit and intent of Bill 44 is certainly to ensure that there's adequate housing to meet the housing crisis that we have in this province and in this country. So certainly that is the intent. In rural areas specifically, it requires at minimum that we consider a secondary suite on all residentially zoned properties. So that's our expectation for rural areas. It's a little bit less than incorporated areas, but certainly as we review our land use bylaws, we'll be looking at opportunities to see, as GM Hall said, within the constraints of our infrastructure and our community desires to land housing in dignified and adequate ways that meet community need. Thank you.
And you have another question, Director Lee?
I think the answer to that question was yes. Anyways, so I'm now curious if you could give us an estimate of the cost of updating bylaw 337 to allow for secondary suites and ADUs under that condition I just described without doing the assessments of infrastructure capacity for wastewater treatment, water supply, and fire flow, and do that later on when we do it through the OCP and for 722, because we're going to have to do it anyways. What would be the actual incremental cost to our organization if we were to do that in manpower? I believe it's 0.3 right now. It was your suggestion. Is it still 0.3?
Staff, do you have a response to that? I see Senior Manager Hall has his hand up.
Thank you, Chair. So anticipating the question, but not having designed a project, staff would say if there's interest in this, we would like to bring back a project proposal. But having anticipated the question, in order to practically do this, external resources would probably be the avenue to accomplishing it in a timely way. If we're talking about incremental rather than diverted resources. And staff estimate as an order of magnitude that we'd probably be looking in the range of $25,000 to $50,000. And that's for bylaw review, drafting, a public information meeting, and associated communications. Work like this would still require a project manager within the organization and would demand time from both planning and infrastructure services. And so there could be knock-on effects to other projects. Thank you.
So I'll let you think about that, Director Lee, and I'd like to move on to Director McMahon again.
Thank you. I have two questions that are somewhat related. One, I'm guessing that we don't have any way to measure pent-up demand, like the number of people who are waiting, wanting to put in a legal secondary suite. And I'm guessing that's the case, but I wanted to check with staff. And then the related question is there any avenue for somebody to put in a suite like through a variance request?
Staff?
Thanks for the question. So in terms of measuring pent-up demand, the best measure that we have, and I will caveat that I know that it's not perfect in terms of how it speaks to the housing types, but the housing needs report, it does speak to the fact that we need over 3,000 units in the next 20 years and over 900 units in the next 5 years, which would nearly double the pace of housing that we've seen in the previous 5 years. So I would say that that gives us an indication of the need. And there is a variety of housing types within that number, but there is certainly need, the express demand for secondary suites on their own. We don't have that exact data, but I can say that within that number, I think we can get an order of the magnitude for it. In terms of whether or not it could be done in other mechanisms on a case-by-case basis, because we're talking about use here, the mechanism would be a rezoning. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
I meant, what is the pent-up demand? Like, how many inquiries do we get from homeowners who want to put in a secondary suite and then discover that they can't do it?
Do you have that number, staff?
Thank you, Chair. We haven't tracked that explicit number, so I don't want to comment on that number, but I would say that there are inquiries generally related to landing housing within the rural areas. Thank you.
Alternate Director Dix.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm wondering, this is something that's going to happen eventually. It's mandated by the province. We're slowly unraveling it. My bigger concern is staff time, ability for planning department to take on, say, recommendation 2. Is there any contrast of, like, if variance applications are being put forward for ADUs, that also eats up staff time, and if we're not amending this now, like, are we going to continue having variances for the ADUs that is going to take up just as much staff time as, say, waiting until 2027 until the OCP is updated? Is there like are we seeing a lot of variance requests for accepting ADUs that fall within the provincially mandated housing requirements that we're talking about through the chair?
Staff, can you clarify? I think there's a question of variances versus zoning there, as well as what is the interest from the community?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, for those two parts. So yes, the mechanism would be a rezoning in this case because we're talking about use and you cannot vary use or density with a variance application. So that would be the mechanism and the tool. We haven't seen an application for that to date. I would also note, though, that the types of things that we are seeing is actually applications for other creative sort of forms of housing that folks are looking to do. Often those result in proposals for OCP amendments, or at least talking with staff about what could possibly happen through the OCP renewal project on their property. And I would say too that, when we look at the BC assessment data, albeit there is certainly demand for secondary suites, but somewhere in there between the demand and the willingness to do so, we're not seeing uptake. So when I look at that number of 5.2%, it tells me that it's actually a pretty low end in terms of what we're actually seeing for uptake. And so there's some combination of uptake or demand. So there might be other housing options that could be pursued through the OCP renewal project that might better meet the demand that we're seeing on the ground for housing, such as multi-unit rental buildings, for example. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Lee.
Thank you, Chair. First off, I'm thinking of option 2, which would give us more data so we could have a look at everything, see what we want to do, give us time now that we've had a chance to chat about it, and that would bring it back to us. And of course, we would still have once we had more knowledge of the subject, we could still do option 1, depending on staff availability. But I do believe that the external resources are available to us because we're going to be using a lot of the external resources to do the work anyways that we're planning under the OCP. So it would be just a little more work for them to do it early. And I'm not sure how much extra staff time we would use. I understand staff time's really tight and we don't want to slow things down. So this would give us a better view of it. I'm not sure that I shouldn't put 722 in there as well, because I believe it could be updated to allow more opportunities for ADUs and secondary suites as well.
Do you have a proposed motion?
Well, yeah, my motion would be just to go with option 2, that a proposal to amend zoning bylaw 337 to allow secondary suites in residential zones outside of water treatment service areas be provided to a future committee.
That's your motion?
Yes.
Do I have a seconder? Director McMahon, are you seconding that motion?
I can second it for discussion, sure.
So we have a motion for consideration. Is there any discussion about the motion? Director McMahon.
Yes, I'm now going to speak against it, sadly. But the problem is that we do not know what the demand is for legal secondary suites and accessory dwellings. If we went through a great deal of extra time and trouble and cost for the regional district to update 337, and then we only got 2 or 3 applications, it would not be worth it. If I knew for sure that there were a bunch of people chomping at the bit out there wanting to put their applications in, then I would support this. But I have a suspicion that that is not the case. So unfortunately, I think we're going to have to grit our teeth and go through the process that we have in place.
Director Bax on the motion.
Yeah, I am also speaking against the motion as it stands in that it does exclude the ADU portion, I believe, doesn't it? But it does, it adds it looks like it adds extra staff time. It says in the report, it says an additional 0.3 FTE will be required to do this work. And I just thought that the option one was a better way to go. So I just wanted to let you know that.
Director Lee.
My residents believe that the uptake would be quite dramatic, and I've had a lot of the not in my backyard people on my case. Also, 2027 is not when this is done. It's done in 2028 before you can start building. 2027 is a misnomer. It's scheduled for a draft in November of 2027. 2027's over. We're looking at 2028 before we can start this secondary suites. I can count to 2, and that's a long time from now to hold up housing that people want and can be built, and for quite a small price here. We talk, I believe I heard $35,000. And we would finally be demonstrating that we are interested in providing additional housing whenever we can. To vote no on this is to say, nah, we're not interested, you'll get it eventually. So that's my, my thoughts on the matter.
Director Bax, and then I would really like to get to the motion.
All right. One of the things I really do love about this process is that I know that Director McMahon brought it forward for discussion but she opposed it, and then I initially opposed it. But after listening to Director Lee, I think I'm going to have to support the area director in his choice. And so as we should all be expected to do at this table, is be open-minded and allow our voices to accept change. So I will vote for it.
Okay, one final comment, Director McMahon.
Yes, Director Lee has reminded me that these processes tend to drag on. The chair of this meeting, I think, is aware of how timelines go when it comes to OCPs. So it would be very unfortunate if we were holding up the creation of additional housing. There I am on the fence again.
Okay, so there's no further hands. I think you're going to have to get off the fence one way or the other, Director McMahon. I'm going to call the motion. All those in favor? Those opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. So 4.5 is a development variance permit, DVP 00112, for number 144622 Sinclair Bay Road, and that's Electoral Area A. Just give a minute for planning staff to switch over. And whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this development variance permit application is to reduce the setback for structures from 7.5 meters to 5.1 meters for the buildings and 4.5 meters for the overhangs, to allow for the construction of a single-unit dwelling and detached garage on the property. The variance is required due to the 7.5 meter setback established in the multifamily RM2 zone. While a previous variance was issued for all strata lots in the development, a 7.5 meter setback was maintained along the perimeter lot lines. Staff have reviewed the application in accordance with the board's DVP policy and recommend that the variance be issued. Staff are happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of clarification from the directors?
Sure.
Go ahead, Director Bax.
I was wondering, are the neighbors asked what their opinion is about these, and what was the response?
Yes, thank you for the question. Notifications were sent to all neighboring properties within 100 meters. We did not receive any comments.
So I'm seeing no further hands. I'm not sure where Director McMahon's gone. Oh, Director Lee. Do you have a comment?
Yes, in this subdivision, it's just a couple of lots that were left off the normal building practices that everybody else is following. I'm quite torn between referring it to my APC or following the recommendation. I think, though, that I will make a motion to accept the recommendation as listed on page 27.
So we have a motion, it's seconded. I see no further comments. So I would like to call a motion. All those in favor? And that passes. Thank you.
Chair.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
You need to invite members of the public to speak. Should
I
they
do,
wish
don't
to.
I?
Yes.
Are there any members of the public that would like to speak to this file?
iPad 2.
iPad 2, would you like to speak to that? I see your hand is raised. I'm not sure who is on iPad 2, but if you'd like to speak, you can go ahead. I don't. And it doesn't look like they're up anymore.
Excuse me. Yes,
Oh, there you are. Go ahead.
I am unmuted.
You are.
Good morning to you.
Can you identify
Counselor.
yourself, please?
Yes, my name is Warren Douglas Glass. I am the homeowner who lives beside a variance document that I have in front of me, DVP 00111. And I would like to register with you that I am opposed to this variance. The variance has gone down to, I believe, 1.1 meter, which is very, very close to the property line on our property. And I'm not happy about it. I'd like to say that it's an effort for them to max out the size of their building, and I understand that, but I'm very, very unhappy with it. I had one discussion with the people that are building the property about a year and a half ago, and it was relative to height of the building, and I indicated to her at that stage that I had no problem with a height variance, but this is a width variance, and I am upset about it.
Thank you, sir. It was my mistake in that I did call on you to speak, not realizing that you were referring to 4.6, which is the next item on our agenda. But we did
I'm
hear
sorry.
you. No, it's not your fault. I did call on you, assuming that you were speaking to 4.5. But we did hear you, and that's why I wanted to hear you out for the next one.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So right now, I am not seeing any further hands for item 4.5, which is DVP 00112. And my apologies for not calling for comments from the public earlier. So we did pass a motion to 4.5. And now we are moving on to 4.6, which has been spoken to by the public. So, Plana Rajala, are you speaking to this? Whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this development variance permit application is to reduce the setback from a side parcel line from 4 meters to 1.5 meters for portions of a building over 8.5 meters in height to allow for the construction of a single-unit dwelling. The variance is requested as parcel shape, site topography, existing building footprint, and other required setbacks make the proposed location the most appropriate for the building to be located. In the proposed building location, a minimal 9.9 square meter portion of the roof area is both in excess of 8.5 meters in height and within the 4-meter setback area. Staff have reviewed the application based on the board's DVP policy and recommend that the variance be issued. Staff are happy to answer any questions.
Directors, are there any questions about this particular file? Alternate Director Dix.
Thank you. Yeah, so to understand correctly, the setback on the side properties is in question due to the height. So because of the variance request for the height, it affects the accepted side yard setbacks. Is that correct?
Staff, do you want to clarify?
Yeah, through the chair. So for structures in excess of 8.5 meters, so there's a max height of 11 meters for all structures. For structures in excess of 8.5 meters, they normally have to abide by a 4-meter setback. The applicant is proposing to reduce that 4-meter setback to 1.5 meters to accommodate the extra height, which I think the building is proposed to be built at 9.6 meters. So they're about 1.1 meters over the 8.5.
Do you have a follow-up, Alternate Director Dix? Go ahead.
So hypothetically, if this became a different roof design that wasn't in excess of 8.5 meters, they could have built a home closer to the side yard setbacks than they're currently proposing.
Staff?
Yeah, through the chair, that's correct. Anything 8.5 meters or under would be allowed to go all the way to 1.5 meters on the side setbacks.
Director Bax.
Yeah, a little confusing. They were given a variance for the height of the building, and so that pushed them outside of the envelope for the width of the building, and they need another variance for the. No? Okay, so the variance was not granted. My question is, how far into the construction phase is this project?
Staff, can you just clarify again what is being asked for here and what is required for a variance or not? And then also the second part of the question. Thanks.
For sure. Thank you, Chair. So there was no previous variance given. the applicant's asking for a variance to go closer to the side setbacks, because the building they're proposing to build is 9.6 meters, which means they would normally have to abide by so the higher you go, the more inward your structure has to be, so 4 meters on the side. Because the building that they're proposing to build is at 9.6 meters, which is in excess of the 8.5 meters, they're asking for a variance to go up to the 1.5 meters, which is the normal side setback for all, for structures between 8.5 meters and 11 meters in height. It's a bit of a convoluted bylaw regulation. Yeah.
Alternate Director Dix.
Yeah, more of a comment than a question, but I think hearing the neighbor speak about his concerns, I'm also considering if we were to decline this variance and it goes back to the architects, how implications may change that actually may be more adverse for the neighbor. It is a very steep pitch, tapered roof line. So the area that actually exceeds the allowable height is non-usable space. It's a narrow area of roof, and because of that, there's quite a jump in the side yard setback. So I would hate to see this go back to the drawing board and the layout change, and then they could essentially be 1.5 meters setback without requesting a variance. Yeah, I would put forward a motion to approve this variance as requested.
So we have a motion. Do we have a seconder? Director Lee is seconding, so there is a motion.
Does the proponent get to speak to it?
I'm just gonna, yeah. I also would like to just refer back to Director McMahon. She has her hand up.
Sorry, corporate officer had her hand up ahead of me, I think.
Okay, I was gonna get you to answer your question, then we'd go to
Okay,
the next
I am
procedure.
as this is a complicated file with a convoluted bylaw, I was wondering if it would not be appropriate to refer this to the APC so that there can be a better in-depth discussion. That's more a question to my colleagues.
Has there been any consideration of referring this to the APC?
Yes, to me, I don't feel that it's too complicated of a bylaw. I'm not sure I love the bylaw that if you exceed 8.5 meters, then the side yard jump back is that excessive. What would the average timeline be of referring this to the APC for the applicant be?
Staff?
Thank you for the question. I believe the APC agendas would need to go out early next week in order to get it on for the April meeting. So that would be a little bit tight. It may be possible. Obviously, if we're able to get to that meeting, we'd then still need to probably bring it back in May. So I'd say the May ES would be the earliest we could get it. June may be the worst case scenario.
So we'll just let you think about that. We have a motion on the floor, and Corporate Officer Reid, do you have something to add?
Chair, I just want to point out there are 2 members of the public in the gallery that may want to speak to this application.
Thank you. So before we call a question, I'd like to hear from the members of the public that are in reference to this particular file. We have heard from one individual. Is there anybody else that would like to speak to this? Yes, please come up to the mic and identify yourself, please. Is he on? Sorry, I'm just going to make sure your mic is on, Mr. Earl.
Apologies, you're on now. There we go.
Hello.
Go ahead.
My name is Ray Deroff. I'm the proposed builder for this project. And the person that has a complaint on the direct neighbor, on the other side of that, the house is within 0.5 meters. The original bylaw allowed 0.5 meters, so it's right there. It's right on the property line. And it's quite high, so it's in relation to the area. It's under height than what was originally in the original bylaws until these bylaws changed. And what Landon Dix was saying, that if we do lower the roof, which the person that's has the complaint, if we lower that roof, he has no problem with the height of it. He has a problem with the setback. If we lower that roof, the setback would go to this setback of 1.5. So if that complaint went through, the setback would actually be 1.5, right? And it would, the history of this is we had a house originally designed for this property and we missed the bylaw when it changed in September 2 years ago. We had to redesign the whole house because it was originally designed to the 0.5 setback. So we've been waiting, then we had to go through DP, so we're about 2 years into this process because of the redesign and the amount of the cost that was involved to redesign the whole house to meet this new bylaw that was changed in the middle of our design. So we're building in the area. I built a house just down from here, and there's no complaints from anybody else. And I know the direct neighbor there. So that's just what I have to say. Okay.
Thank you. I have two members in the virtual gallery. I'm going to start with Andrew, and I'll click. And if you could unmute. Go ahead, you should be able to speak.
Yes, good morning. Thank you so much for hearing us today. We really appreciate it. Represent the property of 5297 Taylor Crescent, lots 14. We are the adjacent, the neighboring property to the proposed amendment. I would respectfully request that the committee stick with the official community plan of 4.0 meters abatement from the side parcel. This area, we've owned the property for 40 years. This would negatively impact, we believe, the tranquility, the environmentally friendly, and the space between neighbors. It's designed with care. We cherish this property greatly. This will negatively affect our property. I believe it's your responsibility to protect them in our neighborhood and abide by what you currently have in the OCP. If it's a question of then, us agreeing to the increase in height of the property, if that comes at a cost of putting the property closer to our property line, we reject that. We would not approve that. So there is an A-frame building which is parallel to where that overhang would take place. It's very close to the property line. It will greatly affect the tranquility, the environmentally friendly aspect of that area, and we're adamantly opposed to this and very upset by it. We respectfully request the rejection of this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next person is Mr. Thompson. I'm going to allow you to speak, and if you could unmute and go ahead, you should be allowed to speak.
Hi there. This is actually Amy Thompson. I am one of the owners of the property that is being discussed right now, 5299 Taylor Crescent.
Thank you.
I understand that my neighbor and his son have both spoken. So that was Warren Glass and Andrew. They are of the same property dwelling. I respect their comments. However, I do not recall the discussion that Warren highlighted specifically about the setbacks. And with all due respect, as Ray Deerwolf stated, we have been going through this process for a while. We have been very considerate of the original bylaws as well as the amended bylaws in question. This has been unfortunately a trying process with the bylaws having changed and us not really having received the original bylaws in time to amend our design. I just wanted to highlight also that there is an existing structure on this property that is grandfathered in, I guess. It is a old cabin that was A-frame built in the 1960s, 1970s. It is in complete disrepair, and our hope is really to build a family home for us to use and to really put a property back into circulation. Unfortunately, right now, because of the disrepair of this building that was left unused for 10 years by the previous owners, it has been just very difficult to have a safe safe dwelling for our family. So I just respectfully ask that the committee considers the process that we have abided by and been very respectful of, and the fact that there is a grandfathered structure in place, and that the new structure does not really go beyond too much of the existing structure, like the roof height and the setbacks. It is all going to be within sort of the aesthetics of the neighborhood. We have been very, very respectful of that, and we have been like owners of this property for a while. And I also understand that the Glasses are trying to sell their property and plan to list next month. And so I find it very unfortunate that they're trying to stop the process when they no longer even are planning to be part of the neighborhood anymore. So that is all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I see I'm just going to leave it at no further speakers. I think everyone has spoken once. I actually don't see anybody up, and that's fine. We have a motion on the floor. If the directors are ready, I'd like to call the vote. All those in favor of the motion. Director McMahon. No, yes, we're going to go ahead and call the vote as recommended by staff. Thank you. All those in favor? And anyone opposed? So that motion carries. Director McMahon, would you like your vote in opposition recorded?
Yes, I would have preferred this be referred to the APC for their recommendation. That's why we have APCs.
Thank you very much. Okay, so that has passed, and we're ready to move on to the next variance, and that's 4.7. And I have found the script to work with variances, so all's good. So 4.7 is the LCRB liquor primary application for Langdale Heights RV and Golf Resort at 2170 Port Mellon Highway, and the recommendation is on page 47. Thank you. Planner Jones, would you like to introduce this one, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to present a new liquor primary license referral from the BC Liquor and Cannabis Regulation Branch for Langdale Heights RV and Par 3 Golf Course located at 2170 Port Mellon Highway for consideration and decision on SCRD's response. The application is proposing the following: to convert the existing food primary license for Bunker's Restaurant into a liquor primary license, and to allow for the purchase of alcohol in closed containers for consumption on site. There was a site-specific rezoning approved by SCOD in 2022 for this site, which did permit additional uses, including a restaurant and pub on the property. In addition, convenience store with a retail component, golf course and clubhouse with billiard room were also approved. Based on staff review and comments received via the referral process, staff are recommending support of the license, including the following: clarifications that building occupancy that does not exceed 30 people for the purpose of complying with BC Building Code, and that no outdoor amplified music be permitted on the patio areas. Staff are available for any questions. Thank you.
So I'm going to read the script for variances. We've heard staff's introduction of the proposed development variance permit. If there's anyone in the webinar audience or in the boardroom who wishes to speak to the application, we ask that you raise your hand. If attending virtually, please use the raise hand tool, and I will unmute you in order of hands raised. When you speak, please give your full name and, if you wish, your address for the record. In order to keep our meeting moving, we ask that you please keep your comments focused and limit them, in this case, to 2 minutes. Once the committee has heard all those wishing to speak, we proceed with a motion discussion towards the recommendation for the board. And I see Corporate Officer Reid would like to speak.
Thank you, Chair. Just to clarify, this is an application for a license, not a development permit.
Yes. I should have noticed that. That's right. So after the fabulous script, this is a different process. So Director McMahon, would you like to speak to this?
Thank you. Glad you're in the hot seat, not me. Given the recent fire out on Port Millen Highway, perhaps staff, just for information, could refresh us on the provisions that the owner of this property is taking for fire protection as part of their rezoning application.
Go ahead, staff.
Through the chair, thanks for the question. That's not information I have to hand, so if we wanted an answer to that question, I'd have to report back at a later date.
And so consider if you do want follow-up information, Director McMahon. And I have some comments. I vaguely remember this coming to the Advisory Planning Commission in 2022. I don't have any specific memory of any specific concerns. I do welcome that there's a comment about no live music. Were there any other specific concerns from the APC regarding a liquor license for this particular project?
Through the chair, I'd also have to go back and look precisely at the APC minutes to see what the precise comments were there. But I think, yeah, those were the kind of matters that were addressed, which is part of the rationale for us putting this condition on the liquor primary license being requested now.
Yes, I just generally remember support for this, so I didn't have a chance to look at the specific comments. The other question I have is, are there other venues on the coast of similar structure with liquor licenses that are not on a bus route or don't really have access to alternate transportation? I'm thinking in terms of what would be the responsibilities of the owners to accommodate people that are unable to drive.
Through the chair, thank you for the question. Yeah, anticipating this question, we did look into it a little bit, and we looked at, I think there's 9 other establishments with liquor primary licenses that are more than 500 meters away from transit routes, so it's kind of not uncommon on the coast. I'd also add that anyone serving liquor does have to go through the Serving It Right program. So as part of that, you know, servers are aware of kind of their responsibilities to ensure, you know, patrons aren't drinking too much and equally have a safe way to get home.
Okay, thank you. I will be looking into that program a little bit more so that I can get a sense of what those responsibilities are. But that's something I can take offline. Director Bax.
Yeah, thank you. I liked your comments about fire protection, and maybe it's something that we can discuss with the owners of this area to try to beef up their fire protection and maybe create something for that area that would benefit everyone. But that, as it is, I'd like to move the recommendations as they appear on page 47.
I'll second that. And then I'd like to get back to Director McMahon.
Yes, I remember from the report a couple of years ago that the property owner is indeed taking steps about fire protection, but it has been a long time, and it would have been helpful to have a link to the previous report so that we could have refreshed our memories on the specifics about this project. But noting that we are not the decision maker on this, we are only making a referral. Under those circumstances, I would support the staff's recommendation.
Seeing no other hands from the directors, but I do have a hand up in the virtual gallery. Is there an opportunity for speaking on this one? Corporate Officer Reid?
It's up to the discretion of the chair.
I'm just going to check and make sure. Andrew, is your hand up for this particular file, or is this a residual hand? I'm sorry if...
It is
Go
not
ahead.
a residual. I would
Okay,
like to
go
speak for 10 seconds specifically about the previous file. Was not able to respond.
Okay.
I understand, please,
Nope,
10 seconds, please.
No, I'm
please.
sorry. I'm sorry. We've
You
passed
can't
that
let
one.
people lie to you and make decisions on lies that are given. This building is
Excuse
not
me,
derelict.
I'm going to have
as
to
you-
mute you.
Thank you. Very
Sorry, folks. Okay, so we've passed that, and we are heading on to the next one, which is...
We haven't voted.
We haven't voted?
No.
Okay.
No, it's been seconded, sorry.
Okay. Are we ready to vote? All those in favor? Thank you very much.
That's my job.
And our next item is 4.8, Cooper's Green Park Enhancement Project Options. So staff, whenever you're ready, you can introduce this.
Good morning. The purpose of this report is to provide options for the board to consider, as well as a request for board decision regarding Cooper's Green Park Enhancement Project. And staff are here to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Directors, do we have any comments or questions about this? Alternate Director Dix.
Thank you. Yeah, I figured I should speak first about this. It's a big topic. I have a few concerns about kind of the details that are presented in this report, being that this project, the favorable outcome seems to be washrooms, and it's hard to make a decision based off not knowing about the septic design, and is there possibility of tying in with the existing septic field, doing different tanks? There's just so many options to facilitate washrooms here. And without knowing, I guess, how it's going to be done, it's hard to justify that $630,000 goes towards washrooms. Without knowing the septic design and details, it's hard to know you know, how much of this is going to be eaten up through archaeological? How much is going to go through environmental? Like, yeah, I would like to put forward a motion, but I want to hear from everybody else first. Those are just my initial comments. Thank you.
Do I have any other comments about this proposal from other directors? I also see Director McMahon is coming back on. She's got her hand up. Go ahead, Director McMahon.
Yes, you guys don't need to watch me hacking and sneezing. These are expensive washrooms. On the other hand, I have swum on this beach, and changing in a porta potty is not a great user experience. So the opportunity for better washrooms and possibly change rooms, I think, is a win. And hopefully there could be opportunities for a play area or public gathering space, and maybe there are some other funding opportunities as well, because there are a number of granting opportunities on the Sunshine Coast for, you know, public amenities that might be very well suited to this particular circumstance. So despite you know, the cost of the washrooms, I think this might be the best way forward. Thank you.
Director Lee.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I too had thoughts about what it's going to take to put a proper septic system in, because now we have to consider ocean rise as we do it, so it could very well be costly. But then if we're going to use the park and we're going to use it the way we think we're going to use it, which is community gatherings, put up a tent if you have to, get married by the seaside, we're going to have the washrooms. They're the step one of anything like that. And I believe this is only talking about doing a design so we know the cost. Not saying blast ahead. It'll come back to us once we have a firmed up proposal and a firmed up cost, and we could revisit it at that time. So when I reviewed this, it seemed logical to me that this was the first step in getting that done. But I'm interested in what other people have to say.
Thank you, Director Lee. Before we go back to Alternate Director Dix, I'm just going to comment. It is a little questionable to me that we have a structure with washrooms right at that site and that they are not available for public use, and that we have a building, it's going to be leased with facilities, and yet now we're going to spend $500,000 or more to provide more washrooms for the public that aren't able to use the current building that's there. So I would have preferred to have seen a more combined option to be able for the public to use facilities that are already available, and they could have been upgraded. For me, I'm concerned about what the possibilities would have been had we been able to use what is currently there, and that would have been a much better use of money. But this is the concerns I have about the way we're going with this particular project. So that's just my comments. Director Dix, Alternate Director Dix. Oh, yes. Go ahead, Jim Gagnon.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the opportunity to comment. I guess I just want to, this is really about surfacing a few things. One, this is a known archaeological site. So we are anticipating quite a few challenges that may arise in this site, and we don't know what those are until we actually get in. We do know that there are challenges with even considering attaching to the current septic. the capacity is already there. So in terms of no more capacity, so there's challenges hooking up with current. So we're not sure, because we haven't done the design, whether or not that option is feasible. However, it's really about what option we want to proceed with in terms of a service level. So if the design can be done, and if it can be done within the current budget, then there would not be an intent to come back to the board because we'd be able to proceed. Now, of course, if the board wants us to come back at the time, we certainly can do that. But if the budget is not there, or it's going to exceed, or there's significant challenges, then staff would anticipate, if that's the direction we're told to go in terms of option one, staff would have to come back to the board to identify those challenges and perhaps look at other options at the time. What we're trying to do through this report is identify what level of service you want us to proceed with the design on. Because there is a community expectation out there, and we didn't want to make an assumption about how to proceed at this point. So we wanted to surface what the community had identified as their priority, what the options were with anticipated costs associated with that and impact to the ability to do other enhancements within the park. And the options are there for the board to consider. Staff has made their recommendation, but certainly are open to other recommendations that may come forward by the board. But I just wanted to raise that there are lots of risks around this site, the ocean rise, the archaeological, the amount of DPs that exist within the site. It won't be an easy project, but what we're looking for is direction on service level. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. I don't think there's been anything easy about this particular project, so we continue on. Alternate Director Dix, would you like to provide a motion or any questions?
Yeah, a quick comment, and then I'll provide a motion. I think the bulk understanding of the budget on this project really comes down to septic, excavation, archaeological, not so much the design of the washroom itself. There certainly is community expectation of a level of comfort in their washroom area, especially given that the history is, Cooper's Green started with a new hall, and now we're talking about the washrooms for $600,000. So there definitely is going to be a level of expectation out of these washrooms. And, looking at like pit toilets as an option, there are modern pit toilets that are flushable, but they also, I'd love to further understand the difference in cost between flushable pit toilet and their septic requirements, versus a proper septic field. There still is excavation, archaeological, and I imagine they're pretty similar in cost. I just feel that there needs to be a little bit more focus on the septic design prior to the building design of the washroom to fully understand what the best recommendation here is. There are so many options of building a septic, so it's not always a one design fits all. And I'm curious if there's a possibility of doing an above grade septic field, so bringing infill rather than excavating. Of course, there would still be excavating for tanks and pump stations, but that is a lot less excavation than a field for something of this capacity that caters to large community events. I imagine the field would be quite large, quite a lot larger than what the existing field is. Also, would be really great to understand, in a new septic design, when there are events that hold 100 people or more, are we designing a system that's capable of handling sudden influx of events like that, or are these events also going to be required to bring in porta potties so that the system isn't a rapid flash septic? Yeah, I'll put forward a motion, I think. Okay, here we go. That staff be directed to provide the committee with a report on the septic system design requirements for flushable toilets, including an analysis of the archaeological, environmental, and financial implications, and how these compared to those associated with modern pit toilets.
Do I have a seconder for consideration? Director Bax. I'm just going to start off with, this is further staff requirements to come back with further information, which I'm not sure is going to take further budget implications. So if we're clear on that, is there any further comments? And we're clear on what the new motion is. So I'm not seeing any hands. Would staff like to comment? I'm not seeing any. Director McMahon, always coming in to save us. Give us a minute.
I realize that this has gotten rather expensive, but I don't want to micromanage this project. It is complicated. I can see a very strong possibility that staff will be back to us saying that it can't be done with the budget assigned in this motion. So I personally would support staff's recommendation.
I'm not seeing any other comments, so I'd like to call a motion. All those in favor of the motion that's presented. So we have 2 people in favor and all those people not in favor of the motion. So that motion fails. So right now we have no direction for staff. Alternate Director Dix.
Okay, having that motion failed, it really, the recommendation provided by staff here is to proceed with designing for a washroom with flushable toilets. I understand it's hard to get a budget without a design. I just want to highlight that for all the board to consider, like it is the septic that is going to be the biggest concern. So when considering after we get design, I think getting a septic design would be priority number 1 for us to review. Even if that information comes in before the design of the structure and things like that, it'd be beneficial for the board to discuss the septic as soon as that is available and make that a priority. With that being said, I would like to motion that the staff recommendation to proceed with the necessary planning and designing for the construction of a washroom building with flushable toilets, with any remaining project budget to be used to construct a natural play area, social space. And yeah, putting forward the motion.
It's recommendation as presented on page 53. Director Lee.
I was just wondering if alternate Director Dix might be thinking of putting and that it be bought back once the cost is known, or something like that, because that was what I heard in the comments.
For staff, is that a given that it's going to come back to us? Rather than trying to, there's no such thing as a friendly amendment. No. So so through staff, is there an understanding that this will come back to us, or would you like a further motion to state that this come back to the board?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Yes, I would like a subsequent motion because the assumption is the budget's been approved. You're approving what service we're proceeding. So the next time you would have seen us probably was in contract award. So if there is a desire of the board to have interim reports or something more specific come back to the board before we proceed, we can do that. We may need to return to the board on implications to the contract that we currently have around design. But again, that's at the board's purview. Thank you.
So may I suggest we have a motion on the floor, if we vote on that, and then have a second motion prepared that the design come back to the board. Thank you. No, we do a second motion to add to it. So we did. Yeah, that was seconded. Is everyone clear on the motion of what we're voting on now? I think it would be for everyone's benefit to just read back the current motion that's on the floor. Thank you.
So I'm reading back the motion that's proposed in the staff report on page 53, as it's written. That staff be directed to proceed with the necessary planning and designing for the construction of a washroom building with flushable toilets, which is option 1, with any remaining project budget to be used to construct a natural play area, social space.
Thank you. Now are we all clear? And that's been seconded. Are we ready to vote? All those in favor? And that passes. So are we open for a second motion to bring the design back to the board? Anybody want to present that? Oh, he does. Sorry, I didn't see that. Alternate Director Dix.
Okay, put forward a second motion that staff provide the, it's my first day on the job. Yeah. Let me just come up with like a nicely.
It's been like 15 years and it's hard.
Staff be directed to provide the committee with septic design options.
Can we say interim design
Interim
details?
design
Details?
details.
How about we take 5 minutes? It's been quite a while.
Motion for recess. No.
Let's just
Okay,
put
I'll come
ourselves
back to
on
that.
pause.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your patience. We're coming back to the Electoral Area Services Committee. I have Donna McMahon with her hand up, and we also have potential alternate motions to present. So go ahead, Director McMahon.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify, if we go forward only with the staff recommendation, under what circumstances would this project come back to us?
Staff, would you like to respond? GM Ganyang, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the question. Staff would return to the board with a construction award report.
Thank you. So go ahead, Director McMahon.
What if the construction exceeded the budget? So would it come back to us for budget approval?
Response.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the follow-up question. So I'll be very clear in my response because I think that was a quick one. So after the design, if the design and cost estimate exceed the budget, I can't proceed with a construction tender unless I come back to the board. And or I go to tender, and if the bids come back and exceed, I'm still back in front of the board looking for an award report and most likely a budget lift at that time. So it's similar to a subsequent report that's actually on the agenda today, whereby depending on the magnitude of the cost estimate versus the budget that has been approved, whether or not we proceed with testing the market or we come back seeking a budget lift. So I think the point you're trying to make is after the design, if the cost estimate is such that it exceeds what's been approved in budget, we'd be back in front of the board at that point in time anyways. I believe that's the crux of the question. Thank you.
And one more follow-up. The other possibility is that something unexpected archaeologically were found that were more, that had implications that we had not considered, then again, would that potentially land up back with the board?
Staff.
Thank you, Chair. So that would be when we're moving into construction, most likely. Right, so we've set aside an archaeological contingency that is probably more generous than in many other projects because of this being a known archaeological site. So if, when the project is under construction, if we start to uncover something that brings us to a halt, or that starts to indicate we're going to exceed our budgets, we would have to come back to the board at that point in time. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'd like to return to alternate Director Dix. And you may have a motion that you're considering.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, given that we are going to have a hard time budgeting anything until shovels are in the ground, the best thing that we can do is just monitor things closely and be informed and aware. So I would like to put forward a motion that staff be directed to return with a subsequent report once final design and cost estimates for a washroom building with a flushable toilet prior to proceeding with construction. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder? Director Lee. And any other comments? Like to vote on that? All those in favor? And that passes. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. We always like to bring that one back for consideration. It's complex. So next one is equally complex. 4.9, Keats Landing Dock Major Repair. Project update is page 70. GM Ganyang, please go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. Just briefly, The report is brought forward in the spirit of transparency. So we are just aware of the market. We're aware of some recent bids related to our other port, Hopkins, which you saw in December. And so based on an updated cost estimate, we are anticipating that there could be a budget shortage. But at the same time, we're not sure what the market will bear. Pardon me. So we just wanted to come back in front of you and make sure that you were aware of the risks, but we are certainly recommending that we proceed and go to tender for construction and see what the bids come in like. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Bax.
Yes, page 71 does kind of say a few different things that raise my eyebrows. Option 1 it usually makes me a little nervous when I see may or may not exceed the approved budget process. But that's the world we live in. And I would put forward that staff recommendation as it appears. That's option 1 on page 71. The recommendation is on page 70. So I make that motion.
I'll second that in terms of discussion, and then we'll move ahead with Director McMahon.
Yes, I have a lot of concerns about the cost of our ports. However, Keats Landing is the major public access to Keats Island. And I think it's very important that we move forward with the repairs to this dock. So I am in favor of this motion.
Thank you. Alternate Director Diggs.
Thank you. Yeah, this Keats dock is crucial to that community. I'm curious if staff can answer how competitive is the marine construction? Like, how many bids are put out there for this work? And is there any way to recover any of the costs? Are there there's commercial users of this dock? Are there any contributions currently from commercial users, or any ways to recover any costs from the use of this dock? Thank you.
Go ahead, staff.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the question. I won't know how many bids I get until we are at tender. And right now, I think the market is unknown. So unfortunately, I don't think I can answer that question. In terms of cost recovery, we do have a bylaw where we have the opportunity to charge a fee for the use of the dock. And I believe that we have an agreement with one service provider for that, according to the fees that are within our bylaw. And that is the only agreement that we have at place in time right now.
Thank you. I see no further hands up, so just add a comment. This is a dock in Area F, and I'm known as the dock czar. Just again, reiterating, I appreciate people's understanding of how critical this structure is to the ongoing well-being of this community and the camps that rely on it. So with no further comments, I'd like to call a vote. All those in favor? And that, do we have I'm just going to see, Director Lee, did you vote? I didn't notice. You're not in the service. Lovely. Okay. Yes, you are. I'm looking at that now. Okay, that passes. Thank you very much. So our next item is communications, and we have a letter from the City of Abbotsford. And any comments? I don't think we have anything added to that. So we're just receiving that. There, number 6, there's no new motions. I have no new business under number 7. And do we do that now or later? Okay. Is there any comments from the gallery about the meeting before we go into in camera? And I've
Connie's got her hand up.
I've got Connie. I'm going to bring you in. So clicking. Do you have any questions for the directors?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I wanted to ask a question about item 4.3, the OCP and zoning bylaw comprehensive review. You have an original contract of 780 that you want to bring up to $1 million. You're taking 94,383 from provincial capacity funding for local government housing initiatives. Where's the other 124,837 coming from?
I'm going to turn to staff for a specific response to that.
Thank you, Chair. There is additional project funding available beyond what was previously awarded through the contract. And there is also a separate budget project that was approved related to a rural land use analysis. And so those are existing funding sources that will pay for the amended contract value. Thank you.
Thank you, staff. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Connie. I see no further questions in the gallery, so I'd like to move that we go in camera, that the public be excluded from attendance at the meeting in accordance with Section 91A and K of the Community Charter, and that's personal information, identifiable individuals who hold or are being considered for a position as an office, employee, or agent of the municipality, or other position appointed by the provision of a municipal service that are at their preliminary stages, and that in view of the council could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality if they are held in public. Got a seconder? All those in favor? And that passes. Thank you very much. Thank you all. We're now back in our Electoral Area Services Committee meeting. I'm going to adjourn that meeting. Do I have a seconder? All those in favor? And our meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.